Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome along to this morning's BCP planning meeting. My name is Councillor Kelsey and I will be chairing this meeting this morning. The first thing I would do is to go to Joe Tyler from Democratic Services, who will read out the housekeeping rules. Mr. Tyler.
Thank you, Chairman. So please note that this meeting of the Planning Committee on the 22nd of April 2021 is being recorded by the Council for live and subsequent broadcast and will be published on the Council's website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone present follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the Chair. Always turn on your video function when invited to speak. Please state your name before you speak if you have not been introduced already. Please remember to mute your microphone when you are not speaking. After the committee has heard from officers or presenters on a specific item, the Chairman will ask committee members who wish to speak to do so by using the raise hand feature in the bar at the top of their Teams window. If at any point you would like to speak again, please just use the raise hand feature once again. Remember to lower your hand once you have spoken. And finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and that mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. Okay, I will now ask all members to identify themselves. I'll call your name in order. If you could just say who you are, please. Councillor McCormack.
Councillor Simon McCormack, member for Burton and Grange and Vice Chair of Planning.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Barron.
Councillor Steve Barron, Ward Councillor for Parkstone.
Councillor Stephen Bartlett.
Councillor Steve Bartlett, Councillor for Redhill and Northbourne Ward.
Councillor Derek Borthwick.
Sorry,
Derek, we can't hear you speaking.
Hold on. Derek Borthwick, Councillor for Stroud and Muscat. Can you hear that?
Yep, thank you. Councillor Simon Bull.
Councillor Simon Bull, member for Wilderton East.
Councillor Malcolm Davies.
Councillor Malcolm Davies, member for East Southbourne and Tacton.
Councillor Brian Dion.
Councillor Brian Dion, Penhill.
Councillor Peter Hall.
Councillor Peter Hall, Christchurch Town Centre.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Hilliard.
Paul Hilliard, Ward Councillor for Muddyford, Stampit and West Highcliffe.
Councillor Toby Johnson.
Councillor Toby Johnson, Ward Member for Alderney and Bourne Valley.
Councillor Marion Lepedevin.
Marion Lepedevin, Councillor for Newtown and Heatherlands.
Councillor Tony O'Neill.
Councillor Tony O'Neill, Councillor Penhill.
And finally, Councillor Anne Stribley.
Anne Stribley, Parkston Ward Councillor.
Thank you. We also have a selection of officers with us this morning. Mr. Perrins, Head of Planning.
I don't think Nick's joining us just yet, Chairman.
Okay, not a problem. Simon Gould.
Thank you, Chairman. Simon Gould, Development Management Manager.
David Hodges.
The Development Management.
Thank you. And we have Tom Hubbard.
Thank you, Tom Hubbard, Senior Planning Officer at BCP.
Charles Raven.
Thank you, Chair. Charles Raven, Senior Planning Officer.
Sophie Maudsley. Sophie may not be with us at this moment in time. There are several other officers that are on the list, but will not be appearing until this afternoon thing. So it may well be that they join us after 1 o'clock. We do have Mr. Colin Tebb with us.
Yes, good morning, Chairman. Yes, Colin Tebb, Planning Officer.
Okay. As I say, we do have a selection of other officers to join us later on during the morning, and we'll introduce those as and when they come through. Okay, moving on this morning then, we will go straight to apologies.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Norman Decent for this meeting, and with item 2 substitutions, there are none for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have any declarations of interest from anyone on the meeting this morning, please? Councillor Dion.
Yeah, I have a local interest in item B, Craven Court, 8 to 10 Nevilton Road. I own a building on Francis Road, which Nevilton Road is opposite, and I own a building at 54 Francis Road, a hotel there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dion. And Councillor Stephen Barron.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's only more for clarity, really. Item D, 10 Critchell Mount. I do know the previous owners of that house, but they sold it many years ago, and I don't know the new owners, and I don't know the applicants. So I'm entirely comfortable sitting on that item. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Barron. That's very information of minutes. Do the committee agree for me to sign the minutes, please? No dissension from that, so that's fine. I will do those at the end. And we will now go on to public issues. The officers will present each individual application. I will then refer to Democratic Services to read out any deputations and written statements that have come in. And then we will ask ward councillors, and then we will move to members for their deliberations on each meetings. So the first item that we have, or sorry, before I do that, I do just need members' approval to rejig slightly this afternoon's item. And I will bring one item forward to the first one, which is the item, I think it is 6I or 6J. Bring that to the first item this afternoon to enable the ward councillor to be able to speak as they need to go and have their COVID jabs. So would not be able to fit them in. So with the members' approval of that, I will do that. So the first item this morning is item 6A, which is 129 to 139 Princess Road and 8 to 14 Prince of Wales Road in Bournemouth. And this is being dealt with this morning by Mr. Hubbard. And I would ask Mr. Hubbard to prepare the screen, please.
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, thank you, Chairman. Can you confirm you can see that?
We can indeed, Mr. Hubbard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good morning, members. This application relates to a site at 129 to 139 Princess Road and 8 to 14 Prince of Wales Road in Bournemouth. And the application is for the erection of 4 blocks of flats providing 119 flats and a 20-bedroom emergency accommodation facility in buildings ranging from 6 to 9 stories in height, with basement and surface parking, cycle stores and amenity areas. And the application is has been submitted by the council. The site's located in the Westbourne area of Bournemouth, shown here for context. Westbourne is this area here to the west of Bournemouth town centre. The western edge of the application site forms the boundary with Poole, and it's just south of the A338 Wessex Way. This shows the site location in closer detail. You can see it's a large site of 0.87 hectares. To the south is the Westbourne commercial area. It's also a designated conservation area. The Wessex Way runs along the northern boundary with a train depot to the rear, which sort of divides Westbourne from this area to the north. Princess Road itself is severed by the Wessex Way as it comes towards the County Gates roundabout, and there is a further section beyond that to the west. The aerial view here shows that the site was originally made up of a number of Victorian villas, which have been demolished in the last couple of years. There's a small permit holders car park to the western end and a separate block of flats beyond that. You can see the site has quite high tree coverage, and it was lower density than the general pattern of development you can see in the Westbourne core area over here. This angled view gives more context as to the general scale of development in the area. Westbourne itself is quite low in scale, with 3 to 4 story buildings being the norm. However, you can also see there are 2 other notably tall blocks of up to 10 stories close by. This one here, the white one, is known as Westbourne Heights. It's a former office block converted to residential use, and it is directly opposite the application site. These two-storey houses on Prince of Wales Road are the closest properties to the application site, which are in the conservation area. And the boundary of the conservation area runs up Prince of Wales Road here, and it goes down Milburn Road at the back of Poole Road, where the townscape is a little bit weaker. It doesn't contribute that strongly to the character of the area. So looking at photos, this photo shows a view looking east towards the site from the western end of Princess Road, outside the front of the neighbouring block of flats at 125. You can get a sense of the general tree cover to the frontage, which I'll go on to discuss in more detail in a minute. This photo is looking back the other way towards the west from roughly the centre of the site. Again, you can get a sense of the tree cover to the site frontage. You can also see the Westbourne Heights building, which is very close to the road. The proposed development in this case is set further back from the road, but of similar scale, but the separation distance is okay. This photo moves further east still along the site frontage, gone past the junction where Princess Road turns into Prince of Wales Road. And you can see the Westbourne Heights building again in the distance for context. And then on the left, these two-storey houses, which are in the conservation area, and the application site on the right, which is just outside the boundary. This shows a wider view of the site at the junction of Prince of Wales Road and Milburn Road. So this is the eastern end of the site where Block D will be located. And this block is up to 6 stories in height. Moving back further again, it's just another view from Milburn Road, again where Block D will be located, and this sort of wooded area on the right will be retained. The other blocks A to C will be to the left of the view. And finally, this view is from the southwestern section of Prince of Wales Road before it meets Princess Road. And again, the site frontage is where you can see the trees here. So moving on to the plans. There's 4 blocks proposed, identified as A to D, with A being on the western end of the site here. The 2 central blocks B and C are linked on the ground and first floors. And the 2 lower floors of these blocks contain the emergency accommodation shelter, which is self-contained with its own entrance and a private courtyard area in the middle. The existing car park on the western end of the site is retained, with the main vehicle access into the site. It would no longer be public parking, it would serve the development now. As I've acknowledged in my report, this conflicts with policy 8.22 of the Bournemouth Local Plan, but the reasons for accepting it are outlined in the report. But basically, it's not truly serving the public at the moment. It's a small permit holders only car park, and there's other public car parking very close by in Milburn Road, just beyond the site over here. The basement plan shows that parking, cycle storage and servicing for the development is located underneath the buildings in a basement level which runs through the whole site. The levels of the site mean this is more of a ground floor by the time it gets to Block D on the over here. So the front entrance to this block is on this level. This is the ground floor plan. The floor plans probably aren't very clear here, but the emergency accommodation is represented by the lighter yellow colour in Block B and spreading into part of Block C with its own courtyard. The proposed flats are a mix of 1, 2 and 3 bed units, the majority being 2-bed units, and they're represented by different colours on the floor plans. Blocks A to C are intended for affordable rented accommodation, and Block D is to be offered as a private rented block, so the overall affordable housing provision is about 70% in the scheme. I'll just run through a quick sample of the other floor plans rather than all of them, but again on the first floor plan you can see the emergency accommodation shelter in Block B and part of Block C. The upper levels have a mix of flat types. Most of the units have more than one outlook due to the more compact size of these individual blocks. You can see from the footprints that the buildings have angled and curved sections to articulate them, and it also helps to improve outlook for occupants. Blocks A and D on each end of the site are the lowest at 6 stories. Block B is 8 stories and Block C is 9 stories in height. The top floors on B, C and D are all recessed. You can see the outline of that here, and the roofs will all have solar panels. The proposed elevations show the heights of the different blocks. Here you can see the front and rear elevations of blocks A to C. The blocks all have full height windows, giving a relatively contemporary appearance. Most flats have small balconies for external amenity space, though there aren't any on the rear elevation facing the Wessex Way due to noise issues. The blocks are all linked by raised courtyards, and you can see the arch details.
Excuse me, Mr. Hubbard. Sorry to interrupt you, but your presentation has frozen. We're still stuck on the very first slide, the proposed site layout plan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I'll try resharing it. Can you tell me what you can see?
I can. We've got the upper floor plan now, Mr. Hubbard.
Okay, so if I move it around, can you see? Does it change?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure why that happened.
Not a problem, Mr. Hubbard.
Do you want me to go through the photos again?
If you didn't mind just doing them quickly, I know you spoke about them, but if you could just run through them, that would be helpful for the members. Thank you. Okay, so that's the aerial photo. You can see there was originally a number of villas on the site. This angled photo here, you can see the lower scale of Westbourne development, but also that Westbourne Heights block, which is directly opposite the site. This is a view from the the western end of the site, showing the trees on the frontage. A view from approximately the centre of the site, opposite Westbourne Heights. You can see the trees on the frontage there. Moving back along towards the east, you can see the 2-storey houses in the conservation area, Westbourne Heights in the distance. This is the junction of Prince of Wales Road and Milburn Road, where Block D will be located, which is one of the lower blocks at 6 storeys. Again, a view from Milburn Road showing where Block D will be located, and the wooded area on the right-hand side there. And another view from the southern end of Prince of Wales Road, and the frontage will be along here. The site plan, 4 blocks proposed, A to D. A is on the western side, B and C are linked. And the car park on the left there that I talked about earlier. This shows the basement level running through the site with most of the parking, cycle storage, bin storage, and sort of other servicing elements. The ground floor plan shows the emergency accommodation shelter, which is in Block B and spreading into Block C with this central courtyard area. Again, the first floor shows that as well. You can see the mix of different flats by the different colours represented on the plans. You can also see the angled elements, which helps to articulate the blocks and give better outlook for occupants. And then moving up through the floors, you can see that blocks A and D are 6 stories in height. Block B is 8 and
and block C is 9 stories. And again, the top floors are recessed and there are solar panels on the roof. Okay, so moving on to the elevations. I think I spoke about these. You can see the balconies on the front and side elevations, the full height windows giving a more contemporary appearance. This shows the side of block C. It's a useful sort of section drawing. It shows that the levels are sort of sink a little in the middle on this part of the site. It's lower than the Wessex Way and the other development on the opposite side. The site is more level on the western end where block A is located. Again, this shows block D, which is on the eastern end of the site. This is the block closest to the conservation area boundary, but it's one of the lowest blocks and it also steps further down on this end. This is a useful drawing to illustrate the development. You can see it's a sort of street scene drawing, effectively showing all 4 blocks at the top here, with the rear elevations below. You can see all 4 blocks share common ethos, but there's also variations in terms of height and articulation, including the curved and angled elements. There's arch details and the recessed upper floors with sort of cladding to distinguish them and give a more lightweight appearance. It doesn't really illustrate the curves and angles very well on this drawing, but okay, here's a CGI showing the development from the Wessex Way. You can see the site is set down from the road on this end of the site. It is quite close to the road, but a noise report has been submitted and assessed by the environmental health team with no concerns raised, subject to conditions for suitable glazing and other mitigation, including an acoustic fence along the rear of the site. This is a CGI showing the development from Seymour Road within the conservation area. You can see the top of blocks B and C here. These blocks have been reduced a little in height during the application process, and the 3D images, it's always hard to give a true impression of distance, but these blocks will be some distance away and are not considered to be overbearing in this context. My report outlines the heritage considerations for the proposal. There is a small amount of harm identified to the setting of the Westbourne Conservation Area, but this is considered to be less than substantial harm when you use the MPPF definition. The harm arises due to the large scale of the development, really, in the context of the lower scale of the conservation area development, but it's not really considered to impact on any key views. And the conservation area itself is quite compact, self-contained and fairly inward looking, in my view, in the commercial part. This shows the view of the street from Princess Road facing blocks B and C, which are the 2 largest blocks. So the scale of the development, it will be a change to the street scene here, mitigated to a degree by the trees and other landscape planting. This slide shows some of the details and materials. The main material will be high quality buff brick to tie the development to the sort of more traditional development in the area. The design also uses curves and strong window reveals to articulate the elevations and provide a high quality design. There are some other materials, including timber and the cladding, to add more detail. This shows a tree protection plan. Trees are one of the main constraints on this site. It is covered by a tree preservation order and a number of trees are to be removed. This has resulted in an objection by the council's trees team. The submitted tree report indicates that a few of the trees are of the highest A quality category. Those on the street frontage perhaps contribute most strongly to the character and amenity of the area. And quite a few of those are to be retained, as well as others at the rear of the site. The trees will be close to the building in places, but sufficient space on balance is retained, and the affected parts of the building on the lower floors will be mostly used for functional purposes such as the bin and cycle storage, as you can see here. So it will limit light and shading issues for occupants because they won't be on the lower floors where there are trees close by. This shows a landscaping plan which indicates that there is space for new tree planting around the site, shown by these trees here, as well as an enhanced landscape environment for occupants of the development. There is amenity space at the rear of the site, and this sort of wooded area on the eastern end of the site is also to be used. So this is quite a balanced scheme overall. The main issues relate to the impact on the character of the area and the conservation area from the scale and height of the development, the living conditions of occupants because it's quite a high density development, the harm resulting from the loss of the trees and the loss of the public car park. There aren't any identified issues on neighbouring residents, and there's no highway objection overall, with the parking and cycle storage provision being acceptable. Scale of development is significant, but it's not without precedent in the area, and it was broadly supported when the scheme was considered by the design review panel. The design and materials also indicate a high quality scheme, so the issues that have been raised are weighed overall in the balance, which mainly stem from the significant contribution to local housing provision in a highly sustainable location and a substantial affordable housing provision. The council has a very high need for affordable housing. So therefore, overall and on balance, I've recommended approval for the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Mr. Tyler, could you bring out any statements, please?
Certainly, Chair. Thank you. So for this application, we have received no statements in objection and 2 in support. So the first of the 2 statements in support is from the architect Chris Wilkins of Penton Architects, and it is as follows. Our Princess Road site presents a highly sustainable location for the delivery of much needed residential development, benefiting from close proximity to sustainable modes of transport, employment, retail and leisure facilities. As such, maximising the number of new homes on this site ensures that we make the most of this sustainable location and reduces pressure on less well-connected areas elsewhere. Working with the local authority to carefully consider bicycle and car parking provision, we have a solution that balances the ambition to prioritise sustainable modes of transport and the likely car usage levels for the development in the short term. The layout of the development has been carefully designed to ensure that we retain as much of the valuable, high-quality landscape elements as possible to ensure that the street scene is still characterised by the mature trees that bound the adjoining roads. The planting of new, young and vigorous trees, landscaping and our integrated SUDS strategy will further enhance the amenity and ecological value of the site. Working closely with the local authority planning team, we have designed a scheme that keeps cars, bins and bike storage away from the street scene and ensures a valuable green buffer to our development is maintained. High levels of thermal performance in our fabric and use of all our flat roof areas for the addition of PV panels maximises the contribution that renewable energy can make on this tight and constrained site. The most sustainable buildings are ones that are fit for purpose and last a long time. Generous space standards internally and high quality and robust materials that will weather and age well in this location have been selected to ensure that these new homes still look as good in 100 years' time, a development that the residents, locals and BCP can be proud of. The scale, massing and forms of our apartment blocks have been carefully designed to sit well on the boundary between the larger scale developments that sit to the southwest of our site and the conservation area located to the southeast. And although during our 2 discussions with the design review panel, they were content with a taller scheme, we have reduced the overall height of the proposals to reflect the concerns of the planning department. The materiality, proportions and detailing of our elevations aim to reflect the character of the nearby conservation area in a contemporary manner, and careful detailing of our generously large openings will ensure welcome sense of depth and shadow to our elevations and provide internal environments that offer extensive views out from our apartments and admission of natural light that will contribute to the health and well-being of future residents. That is the end of the first statement in support, and the second statement in support has been received from Jonathan Thornton, BCP's Housing Development Manager, and it is as follows. The proposed development will provide much needed new homes in Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, where there is a high housing need. This high quality development will provide a mix of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments for both affordable and private rent, as well as shared ownership. The development will remain council owned and will be managed by Housing and Seascape Homes within BCP Council. The proposed family hostel provides 20 bedrooms with interconnecting rooms to allow flexibility of family size. Shared kitchen, lounge dining and external space has been provided with private courtyard, roof garden and shared garden to the rear of the development. Some of the main key benefits of the scheme have already been highlighted in the Planning Officer's report and other submitted statements. The following are additional benefits that we would like to draw councillors' attention to, including landscape enhancements. The site is heavily constrained by trees and the Wessex Way Road widening plan policy. The scheme has been designed to retain as many high quality trees as possible, and proposals to plant new trees and to undertake other landscape enhancements while still making the best use of the council asset. Helping address the climate change emergency, a community heating scheme is proposed to serve heating and domestic hot water to the development from a central plant room. This will result in a net reduction in CO2 emissions when compared to individual heating systems. Further reductions in CO2 emissions will be achieved using solar photovoltaic panels, which will be installed at roof level on all blocks. Car parking. Car parking is above the required policy amount within a basement level and to the west end of the development at ground level. Daylight. Most homes have been designed to be dual aspect to maximise natural light along with full height glazing. Accessibility to homes. All the proposed homes are served by 2 lifts, which is important in the event that one lift requires repair. Amenity. All homes have access to a private balcony, roof terrace or external gardens around the development. Safety. The development will have a sprinkler system installed. Finally, we have worked with the council's planning, urban design and heritage officers to ensure that this scheme is designed to a very high standard that complements the nearby conservation area. The original proposed building heights were reduced and further design changes have been made to the scheme to address concerns raised where practicable. We hope that the councillors see the significant benefits that this scheme proposes and will approve this scheme so that we can start construction without delay. And that is the end of the second statement in support, and there are no ward councillors wishing to speak on this item, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. I will now open up to board members for their comments, and the first person wishing to speak is Councillor Anne Stribley, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to echo the comments in favour of this scheme. I know the site well, I think most of us do. We pass it regularly. I think it looks an extremely well thought out, smart development. And I know if I were looking for a new home, I would be thrilled at the opportunity here. It's within walking distance of the shops and public transport. My only concern is, and I guess this will be for other areas to take into account, can the local schools and doctor surgeries, etc., cope, or will they be able to cope with the new influx of residents, which I hope will be sooner rather than later? But I'm very supportive of the scheme. I think it's excellent design, and I wouldn't mind putting my name down forward for one of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stribley. Councillor Paul Hilliard, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question, please, of the officer. So, obviously, the objection from the tree officer, and then the design consultant came back answering some of the questions. So the applicant's tree consultant responded. Did our tree officer consider responses, or is he still with his objection? Because obviously the objection was quite seriously about the trees being retained, would their roots still be healthy, etc. The applicant's tree consultant is saying yes, the new growth will be coming through. So was there an updated response? Thank you.
Mr. Hubbard.
Yes, there was. The objection was not removed. We have got the tree officer here today, Patrick Clark, if you want to.
Yes, if we could hear from Mr. Clark, that would be really helpful. Thank you. Mr. Clark.
Hello. Good morning, Councillor.
Good morning, Mr. Clark.
Yes, I'm still very concerned about the proposals for this site. It initially involves a 50% loss of trees that are protected by a tree preservation order. So the initial impact is we lose 50% of the site's trees. I disagree with the arboriculture report fully. I think it's not categorised the importance of the trees correctly. It's not set out exactly which trees will be lost. I consider trees on the Prince of Wales Road frontage will be under severe threat. I believe the harm to their root systems, the extensive pruning will involve their loss. It'll be over time. I would assess the majority of trees on the Prince of Wales Road frontage will be lost within 5 years of completion of the development, due to harm to their root systems, harm to their branches, and because the trees are far too close to all the buildings. I believe all trees being retained close to any of these buildings will be lost due to their far too close proximity to those buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Councillor Hilliard.
Thank you for that response. Would there be any mitigation, or is it just the buildings?
Well, we've looked at mitigation. I've looked at the landscaping. Because of the extensive nature of this development, there will be minimal scope for new planting. The new landscaping scheme before us only proposes trees of small stature. We will be losing trees of significant stature, trees of high importance, of great age. These cannot be replaced. You will only achieve small scale new landscaping with small trees. You will lose those trees on the Prince of Wales Road frontage. That will completely expose that frontage. So that is my major concern. But I am also concerned about loss of trees to the rear of the buildings as well, adjacent the Wessex Way, due to their real close proximity to buildings. And I just think there will be problematic trees that will have to be lost because of this development.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Are you satisfied
Thank
with that, Councillor Hilliard? Yes?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pedavin, please.
Thank you. Yes, I would echo a lot of what Councillor Stribley has said. I think this application has got a lot going for it, the location, the need for affordable housing among them. But I do have some detailed questions that I hope the officer may be able to answer for me. First of all, just come up out of his presentation, he referred to the acoustic fencing along the Wessex Way, and in view of all the publicity on the local television news at the moment about that sort of fencing and whether it's an eyesore, whether it obscures views, what sort of height would he be talking about, and how visually prominent would it be from the flats?
Mr. Hubbard?
Yeah, the acoustic fence is 3 meters tall, which it did raise an initial concern with me, but we've since established that it's set a little bit in from the site, so there's room for screening of that fence on both sides, so both to the Wessex Way and sort of in the site as well. You can also paint it green to sort of blend it in with the environment.
Thank you. Shall I ask my next question?
Please do, Marianne, please do.
On page 38, these energy and sustainability, there's a reference to having to partially use or use partially gas-fired boilers. Now, in view of the upcoming legislation and ban on new boilers, this seems to me a very short-sighted solution. Surely a brand new block of or blocks with this capacity, and there's been reference to what they'll look like in 100 years' time, they should be as far as possible future-proofed, and using gas in a new installation doesn't seem to be very good future-proofing.
Any comments, Mr?
I've still got at least one more question after that.
No problem.
Yeah, we did ask the applicant about that, and they submitted a sort of energy report outlining all the different sort of communal heating methods and why they wouldn't be suitable for this site. They have got solar panels on all the roofs as well, so I've added a condition to the recommendation that they have to submit further details of how they're going to meet the policy requirement for sort of sustainability and energy consumption.
Thank you. That doesn't really satisfy me, because in the foreseeable future, too far ahead, we will not be able to use gas for heating at all, full stop. So an alternative will have to be found in the fairly short term. So surely now is the time to meet that requirement in the building process.
I think if members felt that that was important, you could probably adjust the condition to require more detail on a sort of more sustainable method of heating.
Okay, I'll have to see what other members say before I think about putting a motion for the conditioning. My other question is about the SANG and the fact that this application, or if this application is accepted, it can't go ahead without the approval of the SANG at Hicks Farm. My concern, well, first of all, a question: how far is it to Hicks Farm from this site?
I don't know exactly the distance. I think it's somewhere around 6 miles, something like that, I think.
I would imagine it's something of that order. And is there any public transport from the site to Hicks Farm?
Something I've really investigated at this stage. The condition is a fairly standard condition that we have used on other schemes, the winter gardens, for example. It's been recently adjusted following legal advice. We sought council advice on it, and it's considered to be a necessary condition to mitigate the scheme. So basically it is applied to all major development in the Bournemouth area. The sort of SANG will be at Hicks Farm if she gets consent, but if it doesn't, then there is scope within the condition for alternative SANG provision to be identified.
Right. My point is that, sure, I can appreciate the need for SANGs, but to be basically encouraging people to travel from this site to a SANG without any logical public transport available, we are encouraging further car journeys, which is rather counterproductive, I would say, to our policies. But maybe that is much more of a policy issue than a particularly relevant to, yes, the chair is nodding, so it is. But I think it is a relevant point to make of this and presumably other applications as well that come up in the near future. Okay, so thank you. As I say, overall, this has got a lot going for it. Oh, the other question I wanted to ask, can you give us a height comparison between the blocks opposite, more or less opposite Westbourne Heights and the existing Westbourne Heights?
Westbourne Heights is a sort of L-shaped building. The main bit of it is 10 stories and the lower bit is 6 stories. So they are very comparable in height.
So the bit actually opposite, I think, is possibly the 10-story bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's what it struck me when I went to see it.
Yeah.
So the new block will actually be lower than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm finished.
I think because of the topography of the land there, Councillor Pedevin, you're absolutely right. It does appear to be lower for the new development than it is on the other side of Westbourne Heights. And
Okay.
just for your information, it's 6 miles from this site to the Hicks farm sang.
Right. That sounds about right to me. We're not having measured it, so thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Bartlett, please.
Firstly, I think this is a really good use of this piece of land. You know, it fits in quite well there. So very unfortunate, of course, it does have some impact on the setting of the conservation area. But having said that, the public benefit far, I think, outweighs any slight effect on the conservation area. So the development, in my view, is extremely welcome. But I do have some specific questions that I'd like to ask Tom Hubbard, if that's all right. And
please go ahead.
The first one is about the hostel location within the building. I'm not quite sure what the arrangements for the hostel are. Is it like lots of one-room mini apartments, and whereabouts is it located within the 3 blocks? Sorry, the 4 blocks.
It's on the ground and first floor of Block B and part of Block C. So it's basically in the middle of the site. It's got its own front entrance because the entrance to the flats is at the side there. It's got its own front entrance and a sort of self-contained courtyard. It's got a sort of number of areas with bedrooms and living space. So it can accommodate sort of different sizes of families. I think they can be closed off by the look of it, and some sort of communal areas as well.
Okay. Thanks for that, Tom. The other point it was on rubbish collection. Can you point out where the Euro bins will be stored and how they'll be collected?
There's a number of different areas within the site. Each block has got its own sort of storage areas. Can you see the screen here?
Yes.
There's a bin store here on the ground floor of Block A. There's a small bin store here for the hostel facility. And then if you go down, there's more bin stores for Blocks C and Block D. Well, of course, by the time you get over this side, you are on the ground floor, so there is easy access out. And basically, for collection, it's going on some sort of caretaker to move the bins to collection points, which are on the frontage here and here, and then move them back. There's ramps, so there's easy access. This one will rely on moving within the site.
Given that those location points are on the main road there, on Princess Road itself, why is the council not able to collect them? Because I noticed in the report it would rely on a commercial contractor because the requirements don't meet their specification in terms of rubbish collection.
I think the council can collect them. It just relies on the bins being presented to the presentation points. because otherwise it would be too far. It is intended that the council do collect the bins. It relies on a caretaker moving them and presenting them for collection.
Okay, thanks. The next point, and I accept that the parking does meet the SPD requirement, but nevertheless, it now provides half of what the previous requirements would have been, basically half a parking slot per flat as opposed to one. And I understand that it's policy compliant, but I am concerned that this will have an impact on the public car park in is it Melbourne Road, and which is just across the road. And of course, there's another 26 slots being lost from the public car parking. So when you add all that up, there's an awful lot of car parking that would have normally been provided, but now because of policy changes, it's going to be significantly reduced, and the impact on that in the overall area will be significant because the sheer size of this development. But having said that, I understand it's policy compliant. I just wanted to make that point, that it will put fairly significant pressure on the parking availability in that area. The last point I'd like to come, it's already been raised by Councillor Pedevin, which is the requirement for a SANG. Now, this whole development is predicated on a SANG being made available, and specifically Hicks Farm has been specified by the Parks Department. But of course, the planning consent for the first application for the SANG at that location was refused. Now, what worries me is that any issue regarding that dependency may frustrate this development going ahead, and I'd like to understand what alternative sites are being looked at, because at the moment all the eggs seem to be in one basket here, and has any alternative SANG sites been identified that would allow, assuming it got planning consent, would allow this site to go ahead, assuming there was further difficulty in the subsequent application at Hicks Farm, which has been lodged.
If I may, Mr. Hubbard, may I bring in Mr. Firth, who is the legal person? He just wanted to pointed out a bit of a note on that actual condition. So, Mr. Firth, I wonder if you could comment, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So, just to clarify, condition 29, I think, is the condition we're talking about, particularly relating to SANGs. The approach that adopts is to require a scheme to be submitted and approved by officers and council prior to the scheme commencing, to address this issue of potential harm to habitats. But it doesn't actually say it has to be via Hicks Farm. It recognises that as a potential option, but it does also go on to say that there might be other mitigation measures that could be brought forward to achieve this. And really, it's for the developer, obviously the council in this case, but the developer to come forward with a scheme that would satisfy officers to ensure that the integrity of the site is properly protected. Now, as part of any application, officers will undertake what's called an appropriate assessment to consider the suitability of what's being proposed and to ensure, because that's what they have a duty to do, that the integrity of protected sites is secured, and that obviously that's what this particular condition seeks to do. It stops the development coming forward until integrity is secured. I don't know if that helps give some clarity to the position.
Thank you, Mr. Firth. I appreciate that. Councillor Bartlett.
Yeah, it gives me a little bit of assurance, but I just point out that in paragraph 142 of the report, it actually does say the parks section has confirmed that it is their intention to provide the required SANG at Hicks Farm in the Stour Valley. So, having said that, it's a fairly definitive statement there, and given that the first application for a SANG at Hicks Farm was refused, it's sort of it's a little concerning that if the subsequent application is refused again, then that would frustrate this particular development, which is so important to the town. And it just gives me a concern, that's all. But from what we've just been told, there is a potential way through this difficulty. So I'll just leave it at that. But I think it's a really important point. We shouldn't let this development be frustrated because of other reasons.
Absolutely agree with you, Councillor Bartlett.
And that's all. I mean, but other than that, I think this is a great scheme. I'm very happy to move to grant.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. I'll note that for you. I have Councillor Tony O'Neill wishes to speak, please.
Yeah, it's an interesting site, this. I know it well. I was concerned and still have some concern about the subjects that have been raised with regards to trees and parking. I must admit I'm somewhat amazed about some of my colleagues' comments about the desirability of the development, particularly on one side when it faces two large office blocks of square design, one which has been converted to residential, and the other side a 9-foot green fence overlooking the Wessex Way and a railway. What I would like to know is, with regards to the amenity space or the outside space for residents, can you give some depth and detail to that? Because I do have a concern that it may be insufficient to meet a reasonable environment, assuming that not everybody's going to walk into Westbourne for the rest of the day. And the other thing that is of concern is that this development is significant and on a junction with the Westbourne roundabout where the Wessex Way feeds into it. And that is a very, very dense traffic area at certain times of the day, particularly in the morning and in the afternoon and early evening, so much so that I, for one, are often congested and stuck trying to get onto the roundabout. What tests have been done on air quality, bearing in mind that that is starting to take significance in the press and with government? Thank you.
Mr. Hubbard.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, the question about the amenity space.
Yeah, the outside amenity space.
Yeah, so there are a number of areas. You can see this is a sort of raised deck area here with outside seating, and there's a number of pathways leading to sort of other seating areas. It's a sort of woodland setting design, really. It runs through the rear of the site, and there's also a wooded area here with sort of informal play equipment for children, as well as these sort of informal courtyard areas, and of course the balconies that most of the flats are provided with. So does that answer the?
Yeah, can you just give me some sort of scale with regards to the distance between the rear of the building and the boundary with the Wessex Way, please?
Yeah, I can. Just give me a minute to find that information. So I'm just waiting for a plan to load up. So I don't know if you want to, while that's waiting, move on to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, if we wait for that to load. The other one was about air quality in the area, recognising the density of traffic.
Do we have Mr. Alexis in the meeting with us? Maybe he would like to comment from a highways point of view on the impact on that junction there, Tom?
Yes, is the question more about sort of traffic impact, or is it air quality to the residents?
It's actually both. It's the traffic impact, bearing in mind that location is a one-way street onto the roundabout and very close to the roundabout and very difficult to access in rush hour. And the other one is about the air quality. So it is the two.
Okay. Okay, let's look at the traffic impact first then, if you want to look at that. Alexis, are you able to?
Sure. So Alexis Edwards, Transport Development Team Leader. The junction you're talking about, Princess Road, where it meets the A338, that is a one-way street, as you said. Through their traffic modelling using a proprietary programme, the transport assessment and the transport modelling work demonstrates that there is a very low queue lengths turning into the Wessex Way at that point and would not have a significant impact on traffic flows.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. And back to Tom.
Okay, yeah, sorry. In terms of air quality, there is an air quality assessment. A report has been provided with the development, which concludes that it looks at all sources of pollution, particularly from the Wessex Way, as well as the railway and other roads. And it basically models it and predicts that air quality is not going to be a constraint to development. It doesn't have a significant impact here. The buildings are a sufficient distance away from the road itself. That distance from the rear of the buildings to the Wessex Way, I can measure that for you now. That plan is here. Yeah, it's between sort of, it varies obviously because the buildings are not sort of consistently to the rear, but it varies between about 12 metres at the lowest end here at this corner of Block D, and then the highest distance is about 20 metres. So it's generally about 15 metres, the lowest being 12 and the highest being 20 metres away.
Okay, so to the left of the plan, which I assume is Block A, B, C, we're talking 15 to 20 metres.
We're talking about about 15 to 17 metres on those blocks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Bull, please.
Thank you, Chair. Many of the points I wanted to cover have been brought to attention already by Councillor Hilliard and the trees, and listening to Mr. Clark, the tree officer. It certainly does lead to my belief that we've got a lot of greenwash going on here. That the loss of 50% of the trees and the future prediction of what we'll be left with at the end is quite disturbing. The gas boilers that Councillor Lepedevin mentioned, the travel to the Sang, it's just flying in the face of the declared climate and ecological emergency. It's not something I think we should be really considering. It's kind of, it looks initially on paper like a good scheme. It's squeezed into an area that's not particularly well used at the moment. But when you dig down into it, the measures that we should be taking, and I do consider that the climate and ecological emergency is a material planning consideration. It is something that the council has declared, that this government has declared. We really need to be taking action, and the number of things here as they build up. The traffic assessment, I have my doubts. When was that taken? Was that taken over the last year? Any traffic assessment in the last year has got to be questioned, and the air pollution assessment likewise. So for me, it's just not adding up. With our declared climate and ecological emergency, this scheme just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense, and I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bull. At this moment in time, I have no other members indicating that they wish to speak. I do have a move on the table from Councillor Bartlett. I will look for a seconder for that move. Councillor Pedevin, you have indicated to speak.
Yes, in view of the debate we've had, the discussion, the views ranged, I think I would like to move that we have a condition to do with the gas heating. I'm not quite sure what would be the appropriate wording.
I think Mr. Hubbard, you said you could amend that wording in there.
I believe we could amend. I haven't got the condition number. Let's have a look. Probably it's condition 21. Development shall be carried out in accordance with the sustainability and energy measures set out in the statement. I think we can adjust that to notwithstanding the details in that statement, a scheme for the sustainable provision of or the provision of a sustainable heating source for the development shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the council. Something along those lines, I think would achieve that, because that's more to do with the sort of final design of the scheme. I'm not sure whether if you move to sort of a ground source or air source heat pumps or a more sustainable measure, whether that would have any implication on to the design of the building at this stage. I can't really get that information because the applicant is not, the architect is not with us to answer that. So there'd be a slight risk to whether it could be designed in at this stage or not, I suppose, but it would give the option to then justify it further.
Yep. Okay. Are you happy with that, Councillor Pedevin?
Who decides or agrees that it is sustainable?
Mr. Hubbard?
Who makes that judgment?
Well, us in the planning department as well, in conjunction with, we do have sort of sustainability officers that are able to look at that for us.
I fear this could be another what Councillor Ball has just referred to as a greenwash. That
I think if we have it on as a condition, let me just see. Yeah, we just need to make sure that it is in there as a condition so that it at least can be looked at. I think I'm quite happy with the wording that Tom's proposed on that, Councillor Pedevin.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best we can hope for. Yes, yep. So I'll go along with that.
Thank you, Councillor Barron.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a bit of clarification on the the public car parking that's going to be lost. It says the Prince of Wales Road, but is this the car park where the entrance is actually in Surrey Road?
No, I believe as you go up Prince of Wales Road towards the roundabout junction, there is a small car park on the right-hand side, which is mainly used by a few of the local businesses. It's never a full car park. It's never a busy car park, and I think that is the one. It's just being used by local businesses at the moment. Right. Okay. Regarding trees, I'm not entirely happy. I've listened to Patrick Clark, the tree officer, but mostly the trees that are abutting the pavement are sycamores and sweet chestnuts, which are pretty tough trees. I'm sort of reluctantly kind of going along with the officer's recommendation. I'm not entirely happy about it, but looking at the site, yeah, I'm sort of minded to support this, sort of slightly reluctantly. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Barron. Councillor Stribley, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've heard the later comments coming in, but trees, like people, don't live forever, and we do have the opportunity. And this council, of course, we should be planting as many trees as we possibly can, and I think that is down to us. I also hear Marion's comments on gas heating. This will come in with national legislation in due course. Most properties have currently all over our conurbation are heated by gas. I would say the large majority of them are. That will be a step change for the future, but we have to wait till the alternatives are available, unfortunately. So I can see nothing that would prevent me from supporting this application. People are important, and yeah, you may want a gas boiler or you may not, but I would certainly prefer this to people who are living in, to be available for people who are living in substandard accommodation or don't have their own accommodation or are crammed in with relatives or whatever situation they are currently in. We are desperately in need of good accommodation to serve individuals and families in the area. And I think that is the prime call for me, especially here on this planning committee. And yes, I think we should do everything we can to improve the environmental situation, but I fully support this application.
Thank you, Councillor Stribley. In view of there being no other members putting forward at the moment, I will be quite happy to second Councillor Bartlett's move on this application. I think it is a good application. The fact that it gives us so much affordable housing has to be a plus in anyone's minds. The loss of the trees is deeply regrettable, but I think, as Mr. Hubbard has stated, this was an unbalanced decision, and the pluses by far outweigh the minuses on this application, and I totally agree with him. It is unfortunate about the trees, but we will get some replanting. I walk past that site regularly, and some of the trees in there are looking beyond their past, sell by date at the moment. And some of them, as Councillor Barron stated, are very hardy style of trees and will regrow and make their own comfort again. So I will be supporting this. I will second this move, and happy to do so. The affordable housing, as I say, is great. It's all rented as well. It's not going to be for buy for let, which is a great thing. And it's a great improvement for our council housing stock. So I will now go to the vote on this. Councillor Bartlett, before I do so, are you in agreement for the amendment on the condition as suggested by Councillor Lepedevin?
Yes, I am, Chairman, but I obviously understand, what's behind this. But I would just like to add that, yes, we do have a climate emergency, but we've had a housing crisis for years. And this is the council trying to do something about this. To get the opportunity of providing such a large contribution to affordable housing is to be welcomed by everybody. And so I am really, I understand, some of the downsides of this, but it's a balance, as you say, it's a balanced decision. But on balance, there's no question in my mind that this is something we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Lepedevin, you wish to come back?
Yeah, I just wanted to explain. To make it clear, I don't think my point about the gas heating is any reason to reject this application.
No, not
because there are so many positives. But it could, I think, it improves it and improves it for BCP, who might in a few years have to undertake major alterations to install a different heating system. Maybe now we can save the upset to the then residents and to the BCP at the time, and probably save money. To me, it's a win-win-win situation.
Yeah, understand your points totally, Councillor Lepedevin. Totally understand with them. So we will move to the vote those. I will call your names in turn. If you could indicate for or against, please. Myself.
Chairman, sorry to interrupt. Joe Tyler, Democratic Services. I see that Simon Gould has his hand raised.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Mr. Gould.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thanks, Chairman. It was actually just to remind you, if you were just about to go to the vote, that obviously there was members would be voting to change condition 21, but you've already covered it. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. So again, I will go to the vote. Myself, I will be voting for. Councillor McCormack.
For.
Councillor Bartlett.
For.
Councillor Barron.
For.
Councillor Borthwick. For. Councillor Bull.
Abstain.
Councillor Davies.
For.
Councillor Dion.
Against.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Hilliard.
4.
Councillor Johnson.
4.
Councillor.
4.
Councillor O'Neill.
Against.
And Councillor Stribley.
4.
Thank you very much. Joe, could we have the numbers, please?
Certainly, Chair. Thank you. So the total number of votes for is 11. The total number of votes against is 2, and there was 1 abstention. So that motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tyler. So therefore, that application is granted along with the amendment to the condition. Thank you very much, Mr. Hubbard, for your very detailed presentation. It was very helpful, and thank you for members on that one. We will now move on, and the next application is item 6B, which is Craven Court, 8 to 10, Niverton Road in Bournemouth, and we are being presented by this one by Mr. Colin Tebb. Mr. Tebb, would you like to share your screen, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Let's make sure I've got the right PowerPoint. That's what I've got. Can you see that, Chairman?
I can indeed, Mr. Tebb. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. Quite a few similar issues here to the one that Tom's obviously just presented. This site, Craven Court, is proposing to demolish the existing building and erect a 3/4-storey block of 24 flats with parking, bin and cycle storage. Again, Regulation 3 application. Can you see that? Okay.
I can. Thank you, Mr. Tebb.
Yeah. This is obviously the.
Could somebody turn their phone off, please?
Not mine.
Could we ensure that all phones are switched to silent, please? And much of your music is endearingly enlightening at this time of the day, but we do not need any further interruptions, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, sorry, Chairman. Yeah, this shows the outline of the East Cliff Conservation Area with the light brown hatched area. So this is a site in here, just in from the St Swithin's Road and obviously the Lansdowne area beyond. This is an aerial view of the shot of the property. Obviously, this is Niverton Road here, Francis Road, which it backs onto to the north. Again, this is the Niverton Road frontage and the existing property here. This is Craven Court as it is at the moment. Yes, it's obviously been over the years. It was originally a Craven Court Hotel for many, many years. It's now, and is, as the applicants point out, not particularly a care home, but a home for people in need of care, I guess. So this is Craven Court at the moment with its later additions, which is the mansard roof across the frontage and the top. This is the adjacent site at Elsted Hotel, which is 12 to 14, which is just to the east of the.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Tebb.
Yeah.
Is there any way that you can make your presentation slightly bigger on the screen?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Where? Let me try and put it onto my laptop. On my separate monitor. Is that any better?
Colin, it's Simon here. I think you need to hit the slideshow button just below the cursor.
Oh, hold on. Sorry.
See where it says slideshow? Along the top of the screen, along the top of the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
From the top left-hand corner, it says File. If you come across, it says Slideshow.
Right. Sorry.
Move your cursor straight up.
Yeah.
Okay, go to the left.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Slideshow.
That one.
No, keep going right.
No, keep going right.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Come down a line.
Yeah. Oh, a slideshow. Yes.
Yeah, and then now go down another line and go to the left. It says From Current Slide.
That's it. Excellent.
Shall I just go back a stage, Chairman?
Would you mind, Colin, please? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Right. So I'll just go back to perhaps that one there, Chairman.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
No problem.
Yeah, so yeah, this is obviously the existing building here. Existing photographs, as I say, originally was similar to number 6 Wilderton Road, which is this building here. But sadly and unfortunately, over the years, it's been altered to its appearance now, Chairman. With this, I personally feel and professionally feel is a poor addition to this obviously original villa. So yes, going back, this is the Elstead Hotel, which is immediately to the east of the property. Again, that I think was originally built with a mansard, with this mansard extension several years ago. This is obviously number 6 Wilderton Road, as I say, is an attractive original Victorian semi-detached villa, which is now a children's nursery. Just moving around the site. This is the existing front entrance wall with a small grassed area behind, and then quite an extensive area of tarmac car parking behind. Just walking around towards the rear of the building. It's quite tight to the back of the back side, so it's difficult to get photographs here, Jim, but you'll see, members will see, there are these large 2-storey additions both here and here, which are effectively 2-storey wings that have been added to the property over the years. Beyond that again is the Elstead Hotel with its mansard roof. This application has been with us for some time. Originally, I will be honest, the applicants were not keen to amend it. The original scheme did show 18, 19 spaces here along the site frontage, which essentially was just a sea of tarmac again, so it wasn't really having any benefit in terms of the broader East Cliff conservation area. Eventually, we did persuade them that, you know, we are in a very sustainable location here. We're close to the Lansdowne, close to Bournemouth Town Centre. We're close to Bournemouth Railway Station as well, just to the north, probably 5-10 minutes walk away. And in the end, they did agree that there was an opportunity here to, you know, significantly increase landscaping and improve the site frontage. So we're now down to, I think it's 9 spaces, including 2 electric points and 2 disabled points. Now they're proposing to close one of the entrances off to the site, which again would afford opportunity to improve the landscape in this corner, plus a separate pedestrian access here to the site, to the building. Also, as part of this scheme, then they have agreed now to put again a brick wall and piers and railings on this wall to, you know, improve the sense of security and enclosure to the public realm, as it were, from Wilderton Road. Moving on to the floor plans, there's a mixture of 1- and 2-bed units, all of which meet the technical housing standards, nationally prescribed technical housing standards. Again, in terms of elevations, this doesn't particularly show it particularly well, but this is actually again the amended scheme. Again, as part of the discussions between the officers and housing development, this was actually improved quite radically. We did ask for more vertical emphasis on the building. Perhaps if I just move on slightly to the main frontage, main facade, and the floor plan. They did amend the scheme to bring the building forwards by 1 metre in certain sections. So this bay here would have a much more stronger vertical emphasis, which, you know, reflects the Victorian villas at number 6, and then setting back the main entrance lobby. Again, a further quite significant amount. So you have a variation between 1 metre and 2 metres between the main facade, the main bays. Again, with the introduction of more balconies, recessed balconies, but again, just to really try and emphasise the vertical emphasis on the building. There is a street scene here, Gemma. It doesn't really show you a great deal other than the existing and comparable potential building heights. Obviously, this is the existing dotted line of the existing building. This is the new proposed building with the, well, it's effectively 3-storey, but with a recessed further roof on the third floor, sorry. And this is then hopefully demonstrated, I think, much better in the updated CGI that's just came in last week. Again, we really did try and emphasise that, we need more vertical emphasis here, just to try and articulate the building better, to break up what was originally a very blank facade, which did really give the appearance of an office block, which we weren't happy with. Again, this scheme now hopefully introduce more landscaping to the site frontage, an area of landscaping immediately in front of the units as well, to offer protection from vehicles parking outside some of the units, and again a separate pedestrian access down this end. We did suggest that this CGI be extended to this area to include the site frontage and the improvements here, but unfortunately didn't quite have time to do that, Chairman. Again, we suggested the wall and the piers here and railings just to reflect what's happened at both number 12 and number 16. This is the Pines, as it's called, which is 16 Newton Road. Again, a newer infill development. I acknowledge this is more of a pastiche of buildings in the area, and that's something that we could have explored. But in this case, we did decide that this is a contemporary design. It does break away from perhaps some more traditional buildings in the area. However, in terms of policies and the MPPF, then this does suggest, where a plan is out of date and there is a significant or is a housing shortfall in the area, then on balance it is tilted in favour of granting sustainable development. In this case, Bournemouth has 4,300 people on its housing register earlier. There are also significant public benefits in this scheme, and it's 100% affordable. And thirdly, it's obviously a sustainable location, as I alluded to earlier, close to the town centre, within walking distance. So, reducing the demand for car use, and close to the station as well. In terms of the existing building, I do acknowledge the heritage concerns and Historic England's advice. However, several responses to those point really. It's outside, there is a mansard that's been added, which I think has really diluted its appearance and character and impact and contribution towards the conservation area. In my view, it is questionable about what that contribution is. I certainly professionally don't feel it's a positive contributor to the existing building. I think at best it's probably neutral. Again, in terms of improvements, the site frontage could be entirely landscaped. At the moment, it's entirely tarmac. Internally, the way you were provided with reports, a fire risk assessment and a building survey, they do question the actual ability to convert the existing building, which again, in recent appeal cases, inspectors have said in some cases that they do agree that the ability to convert an old building such as is there at the moment does have some material considerations here. In terms of proposed building, as I say, we were actually back in December reminded to refuse the application. However, we then secured some, I think, quite valid and good improvements to the facade of the building, as I say, to re-articulate it really, just to break up this facade and introduce a much improved landscaping scheme to the site frontage, along with new piers and new walls to site frontage and railings to reflect what's happened to the east. The East Cliff Conservation Character Area appraisal does allow for contemporary design. Whether or not this is exemplary design, is open to debate. However, the appraisal does suggest that provided a building is well detailed, using good quality materials and carefully responds to historic setting, that it will accept such buildings. On the question of potential conditions and materials, there are conditions number 4, which requires the closure of the existing access. Number 5 is obviously the materials to approval. Number 6, there is a specific condition regarding samples of brickwork to be built on site. So if members were wanting to approve it, then obviously we would look to get a sample of the brickwork here. We envisage again a buff brickwork to match or similar to the Victorian villas next door, but we would suggest a condition to require a sample panel to be built on site. Conditions 15, 16, soft and hard landscaping scheme, and again a specific condition number 18, which is related to screen walls. So overall, Chairman, I'm recommending for approval for the scheme. I think that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Tebb. Mr. Tyler, do we have any statements to be read out, please?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. So we have received no statements in objection to this application and 2 statements in support. The first statement in support is received from Pure Town Planning and is as follows. The key planning issues surrounding this case revolve around whether the proposal preserves or enhances the character and appearance of the East Cliff Conservation Area, and if there is determined to be less than substantial harm, whether this would be outweighed by the overriding public benefits of the scheme as required by the NPPF paragraph 196. The merits of the existing building have been considered at length in the course of this application. It is a late Victorian villa, but almost all its character has been eroded by extensive alterations, resulting in loss of historic fabric and architectural detailing. I consider that what is left makes no more than a neutral contribution to the character and appearance of the conservation area. What is quite clear is that if the building does make a positive contribution to the character and appearance of the conservation area, it is very marginal and falls a long way short of many other examples of late Victorian villas in the locality. The proposed new building has been carefully designed to be a very high quality replacement building, using appropriate modern design rather than pastiche. Working with the planning officers, the architects have improved the scheme, including the vertical emphasis and proportions, articulation, materials and colour to better reflect the conservation area context. In addition, the front courtyard was redesigned so as to provide a much better setting to the building and the street scene. Members are reminded that paragraph 192 of the NPPF indicates that in determining applications, local planning authorities should take account of the desirability of new development, making a positive contribution to local character and distinctiveness. I consider that in replacing the marginal existing building with a new high quality design, the proposal would preserve all of the conservation area. Some may disagree and feel that there is some residual less than substantial harm. However, paragraph 196 of the NPPF requires this to be weighted against the benefits of the proposal. In this case, the strong benefits of the proposal are clear. The proposal would enable the council to make much more efficient use of this previously developed land to create much needed high quality affordable housing. It is also worth pointing out that the existing building is in a poor condition and is hugely restrictive in both the quantum and quality of accommodation which might be provided. Even if redevelopment of the existing building were viable, the same public benefits as the present scheme could simply not be realised. I hope members will agree that the significant public benefits of the proposal clearly outweigh any low-level harm to the character and appearance of the conservation area. And Chair, for the second statement in support, we have received it from Claire Lynch, who is the Housing Development Officer for BCP Council, and her statement is as follows. The Craven Court building is reaching the end of its usable life in the short term. The cost to refurbish the building would be significant. However, this type of refurbishment would not be able to remediate concerns, such as making better use of the space within the building. An alternative option would be to utilise facade retention and demolish the inside of the building and to rebuild, but result in the removal of the roof and the outer wall. Again, this option would be too costly and would not achieve the benefits of what we are proposing. This site is located in a conservation area, and it is the character and landscape that is considered important. This new proposal improves upon these features, as the proposal has a smaller height, bulk, mass and footprint than the existing building. The modern appearance of this building meets the conservation area appraisal policies, stating that replacement buildings should not be pastiche. There are also plenty of new builds on this street that are modern in appearance, so this proposal would result in less than significant harm to the conservation area. The NPPF tells planning officers to consider the benefits of the overall scheme when it is proven that the proposal will result. The benefits of this scheme include a 24-unit, 100% affordable housing scheme, increasing the overall number of units on site by 6 homes, decreasing the number of families, helping BCP Council to meet its housing delivery targets, being delivered upon receiving permission, the carbon savings being 22% more above that than typical for a new building. There has been no public objection to this planning application. Historic England and heritage officers have raised concerns, and we have made changes to the design of the scheme to address these. Other concerns include overdevelopment. The current building has lots of void space that isn't used, including a ballroom. The proposed building is actually smaller, but is more efficient at using space. The loss of an important heritage asset. A recent planning appeal at Wilderton Road permitted the site with the listed building, as significant alterations to the listed building made this building less valuable. On the advice of PREAP, a heritage consultant involved throughout the scheme's design, and their heritage statement concluded that our proposal would result in less than the substantial benefits associated with approving this scheme. That's the end of the second statement in support, Chairman, and there were no ward councillors registered to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. So, members, it's over to yourself to kick off on the debate on this one. I'll just say a few words. This is actually in my ward. It's a building I walk past most days, and I will be more than glad to see the back of it. It's not in the best of upkeep states. Yes, I appreciate it. It is in the conservation area. The mansard roof is an add-on. It hasn't been done particularly well, so in my opinion, it doesn't fit in very well with the surrounding areas. I will come back. I'm glad to see the reduction in the parking. There is parking available in the streets, and removing the bland black tarmac that was on the front, I think will be a great benefit to the area. Councillor Stribley.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of questions. The officer referred to Bournemouth having over 4,000 people on its housing waiting list. Did he mean BCP has more than 4,000 or Bournemouth alone? I think we need to clarify that one. And I was going to ask, what is the tarmac being replaced with? I'm sorry if I missed that in the presentation, because I thought there should be a condition against large areas of tarmac. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tebb.
Thank you, Chairman. The figure of 4,300 came from the report that was going to Housing Development Cabinet on the 14th of April.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that number is the number for the BCP area.
Right, okay. It's written, yeah, I've got it here. Sorry, Chairman. This quote, there are 4,000. Sorry, there are circa 4,300 houses on the housing register for the Bournemouth area. Yeah. I see. So yeah, circa 950 in Poole area and circa 400 in Christchurch. So I read that.
We are now a united council, and we should be careful to use the proper name, I think. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the question of hard standing, Chairman. Obviously, I think I quoted the condition. There was a condition requiring details of that, but typical, I think what you call tegular paving. That's what I'd envisage for the hard standing. But again, that's subject to a condition, which is here. I think it's 16. I think I said.
Does it state that surface is permeable, Mr. Tebb?
I think the standard condition does, Chairman.
Yeah.
Let me just try and elaborate. I'm sure all hard standing areas are permeable, and yes, condition. No, excuse me. Yeah. 40 years of hard landscape work should be 72. Yeah, it doesn't specifically mention permeable, Chairman. It certainly is required to have our further approval.
Yeah, if we could include permeable to ensure that it is, rather than just have a bland black tarmac there, that would be fine.
Oh yes. Okay.
Yep. Okay, Councillor Stribley.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Le Pedevin, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't intending to speak quite so early in the proceedings as this, but nobody else was volunteering, so I'm afraid it's me again. Couple of things. Reference has been made to Wilderton House, which came to our consideration in the Pool Planning Committee on a couple of occasions. I really don't see the comparison, except that it's an old building in not good condition. That was the situation of that one, is that it's a standalone house on a big plot. It doesn't form part of any sort of street scene, and there's nothing surrounding it to reference it, or for it to reference. This is quite different, being in a street of originally Victorian villas, many developed. I really don't see that is a valid comparison at all. But my specific question, again, it's a small detail really, but there's reference on page 93 that a large number of the flats, I can't find the actual wording now, will be fitted with LED lights, that sort of thing. But why not all of them if it's a good thing? It's in paragraph 66. The internal and external lighting will be low energy and include new LED technology. This will be installed in the majority of the units. Why not all of them? What's the reasoning? Perhaps the officer could give us an answer to that one. If it's good enough for some, why not for all?
Very good question, Councillor. Just going backstage to your Wilderton House point, I think I just quoted that insofar as I think the inspector concluded on that case that there was really very little chance of that particular building being viable in terms of a conversion, and an alternative use is highly unlikely to be found, as opposed to compare it directly with the physical relationship of this and its impact on Niverton Road. So it was just to quote the quick question about, in reality, the inspector in that case felt that it's really unlikely to be the preferred option of sustaining and enhancing the heritage asset in that case was highly unlikely. And that was my comparison being drawn from Wilderton House.
Yeah. Can I just butt in? It wasn't so much your reference to it; it was the commentary we've just heard from the applicant on behalf of the applicant.
Yes.
Who referenced it.
Okay. LED lights. Yes. Good point. Again, that comes just drawn from the applicant's submitting, supporting statement. But there is a condition again regarding renewable energy that we're recommending. Whether or not anything needs to be added to that to enhance that. I think renewable energy we talk about under condition 13.
I think if we were to note on to say that we would expect to see LED lighting throughout the building, not just in some of the building.
Okay.
Can I just come back? I asked the question because I thought there was some practical reason why it wasn't appropriate for the whole building, but it seems that is not the case.
No, it does seem very strange, Councillor. It does seem very strange.
I tend to agree, Chairman.
Yep. Okay, Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. Right, I'm just trying to understand why the need for affordable housing will generate a design that is completely contemporary and doesn't fit in with the character of the conservation area. Yes, you could build affordable housing, but it could be in a style that would accord to the conservation area and maintain it. I don't believe this design does contribute in any way to the conservation area. There are no other buildings in the area with a flat contemporary roof design. I believe that this building does actually fit, as it stands, does fit in quite well and forms part of the contribution to the conservation area. the new design as it is completely different. It's completely out of character. So I'm just wondering why this design is supposedly been generated because of the need to provide affordable housing. Affordable housing could have been achieved with another more appropriate design in a conservation area. That's the first point I'd like to make. The second point is that I thought I heard the officer describe how the council had persuaded the designer to reduce the amount of parking on the site. Now I accept that under the new SPD there would be no parking required for a new building, which is almost astonishing. But I do know this area quite well, and I know that parking is at a premium. And I'm sorry to disagree with you, Chair, but it's not always possible to park on Wilderton Road in that area. But just taking the numbers that you've got there, there are 9 parking slots, I think, have been. So what do the other 15 residents do with their cars that they own? Are they going to put them outside on Wilderton Road? Somehow I doubt it. So whilst I understand the issue, again, about parking, again, the new SPD, I'm afraid, is not doing us any favours whatsoever. But the key point I have is the one on the appropriateness of that design within the conservation area. And I have to agree with the heritage officer here that I'm not sure that the benefit of affordable housing here will outweigh the damage caused or the harm caused in the conservation area. Would maybe the officer would like to come back on that? Thank you.
Mr. Tebb?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor. Design obviously maybe a question for the housing development team. Obviously we were presented with it in that format at the outset. I'll be honest, back in, I would suggest November time, we was heading for a refusal on design, but we then did have a lengthy meeting with the housing development people and got secured the amendments you see on the plans and on the elevations. The question, I guess, is it in terms of the broader conservation area, is East Cliff Conservation Area. It's not this building. This building isn't listed. In my view, as I say, what's been added to it over the years has really watered down its contribution to the character and appearance of the broader conservation area. Whilst obviously there is some debate about this particular type and style of building, but that's what we were presented with. I think during the process we did secure, I think, quite significant changes in terms of vertical emphasis to the building to reflect the village to the left, to number 6, along with quite a significant reduction in parking, which then enabled quite a I think an potential improvement to the site frontage, both in terms of hard surfacing and soft landscaping as well. Balancing that against the significant public benefits again, which in this case are again 100% affordable housing, then I felt there was less than substantial harm to the broader conservation area as a whole. That's I suppose my response on design. Parking, obviously, yes, as you said, quite rightly allude to, it's it is the SPD does actually indicate there could be 0 parking on the site. So they are providing at least 9 spaces, 2 of which are disabled, 2 of which are for future proofing, I guess, so they can be adapted for electrical vehicles. We are very close to the Lansdowne and beyond that, the town centre, and we're also very close to the Bournemouth railway station. So again, a balanced judgment with all those points in mind, I recommend it for approval, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tebb. Councillor Bartlett?
Yeah, again, as I said, that could have been used, that would have made the new development fit in with the conservation area. This actually goes completely against the general style within the conservation area. It's completely different to anything that's in the street. In particular, the design of the roof, which actually looks atrocious. It's not in keeping at all with the conservation area. I really can't understand why this design has been put forward, because it is so different. Affordable housing could be put there in a building that does fit the area much better than this one. I'm just, words fail me, actually. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dion, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce Councillor Bartlett's opinion that, in fact, do we have a conservation area? I mean, if we're going to decide that buildings are old and tired and we don't like the look of it, that's immaterial. It's still in a conservation area, and this design is totally inappropriate. The other part is also Nevilton Road is hard to drive down sometimes, let alone park, because it has parking on both sides of the street. To force the parking out of that building onto the street and also neighboring streets is just another crisis we're developing in what would be considered a conservation neighborhood. I mean, you know, we can make special rules if we don't like the looks or the balancing, but we don't make special rules on parking. Well, I'm afraid, you know, that a part of the traffic through there you have to accommodate parking for everybody in a building, especially on Nevilton Road. And we can't just let it slide. I think the design is inappropriate, and I'll probably be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Dion. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I have to disagree with the last two speakers. I think that this is a vast improvement on what is there at the moment, because whilst we have to protect the look of the conservation area, that's what the rules are there for. That doesn't mean that we have to. That doesn't mean we have to deny any update to the conservation area. It's not there to deny the moving forward of the conservation area. It's designed to protect its character, and I don't believe its character is enhanced by allowing old buildings that happen to fit what originally was the underlying tone of the conservation area to crumble into disrepair. I think that whilst the original tone of that road was Victorian villas, if you look at the pictures there to the right of the site, is a building that is very much not a Victorian villa, and in my opinion is far more ugly than the proposed development. It also has a flat roof of a slightly different style, I'll grant, but it is also a flat roof. I think that the affordable housing contribution is again invaluable, and in regards to the parking, it does meet the policy, so therefore there's not much we can do on that front. And in terms of new people moving into the property, like the officer said, it's very close to the middle of town. If you are unable to walk that distance, the fact that there might not be parking for you in that building will enter into your decision as to whether or not you move in there. I think that overall the officer's recommendation is correct, and I would happily move to grant at this point, and I would seek a seconder. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I will to grant, but before we do that, I would like to bring in Ruth Povey, if I may. Ms. Povey, are you available?
Yes, I am. Ruth Povey, Planning Officer in the Heritage Team. If you're happy for me to speak, I just like.
Yeah, please do.
I just thought it might be helpful if I responded to some of the comments that Councillor Bartlett brought up. I mean, I would very much like to agree with Councillor Bartlett. Are there other ways of achieving the same goal here with a different design? Now, I don't know if councillors, you've read the letter from Historic England. They commented on this following the receipt of amended plans. Now, they have said that the existing building makes a modest but positive contribution, but they've accepted it could be lost if the proposed replacement was justified, if it was of an appropriate quality and design. But they've basically said, and I quote, "It's anodyne anywhere architecture. It would fail to preserve or enhance the character and appearance of the conservation area," which conflicts with the 1990 Town Planning Act. As you know, the local planning authority are under a duty to preserve and enhance the character of conservation areas. So everyone is saying this, agreeing it's harmful, but it seems to me we're a little bit designed from the inside out here. It's a boxy form, and yes, it's been slightly amended to try and give it some articulation, some vertical emphasis to fit with the character of the area, which is of well detailed period villas, it's, you know, I feel that it's not the exemplary modern design, contemporary design that the draft conservation area appraisal is looking for. So that's, I just feel that, you know, maybe there's another option here. I mean, the ideal and green option would be to convert it, but if that's not possible, is there another design option? I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Ms. Povey. Coming back to the list of speakers, Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm finding this one quite challenging, understand the needs of a conservation area. But I must be honest, this building leaves an awful lot to be desired. And apart from the two villas alongside, I find that this end of Netherton Road is quite a mishmash of design. And very few of the buildings at that end of the road have any architectural merit. And I think on balance, I'm inclined to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, Chair. Is this still up and running as a care?
Councillor Borthwick, could you bring your microphone down in front of your face because we can't hear you speaking? Are you there, Councillor Borthwick? I'll come back to Councillor Borthwick in a moment. Councillor Bartlett.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back on a couple of things that have been mentioned about the current building. You know, about and language such as crumble into disrepair. Well, you know, we need to remind ourselves this building is owned by the council. You know, the way it appears in the street scene, it could be enhanced significantly if the council wished to. It is actually not a displeasing building, and it is very characteristic of the area, despite its additions, but which you can't see from the front in the street scene. So I don't think, you know, and I think that the fact that the heritage officers supported its retention, and the fact that it will cause harm if it is removed, it needs to be taken account of. We've got to take the, you know, the fact that we have conservation seriously. If we just allow anything of any, you know, modern contemporary design just to go in willy-nilly to conservation areas, the whole purpose of the conservation area is lost. So I just wanted to add that, you know, this building as it is could be improved because the council own it, and it shouldn't fall into a crumble into disrepair as has been described either.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Borthwick, are you back with us?
Yes, yes. My question is this still running as a care home, or are we looking at an empty building?
I'm struggling to hear you, Councillor Borthwick.
Is that better?
Yeah, go on.
I'm just wondering if this building is still in use as a care home.
I will find out. Mr. Tebb, did you hear that?
Just about, Chairman, yes.
Is the
yes,
building still in use as a care home?
It is, Chairman, yes, yes.
So there's no rush into a decision today if we want to look at better designs, but of course everybody's got their different ideas on what the building should look like, but I do feel that I get a feeling from the discussion so far that there could be an improvement in the design and not just something which is not really suitable for this area.
Thank you, Councillor Borthwick. Do I have any other members wishing to speak at this time, please? I have a move on the table from Councillor Johnson to seconder for that move, please. I have a hand raised, and that is from Councillor Paul Hilliard.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm happy to second it. Yeah, as before with trees, yes, it's an issue, but on planning balance, it made sense to go ahead. Similarly, I'm keen on heritage, but again, on planning balance, to introduce affordable housing has to be a significant plus. So yeah, I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. Do I have any members wishing to further speak, please, before we move to a vote on this? No. In that case, I will call your names one by one. If you could answer for or against, please. Councillor Simon McCormack.
Abstain.
Councillor Stephen Bartlett.
Against.
Councillor Stephen Barron.
For.
Councillor Derek Borthwick. Councillor Borthwick. I will come back to you. Councillor Simon Bull, please.
For.
Councillor Malcolm Davies.
For.
Councillor Brian Dion.
Against.
Councillor Peter Hall.
For.
Councillor Paul Hilliard.
For.
Councillor Toby Johnson.
For.
Councillor Marianne Lepedevin.
Against.
Councillor Tony O'Neill.
For.
Councillor Anne Stribley.
Reluctantly for.
And myself also for. Councillor Borthwick, we can hear you. You are muted.
Sorry, I've had an electrical problem, so I haven't heard the last couple of minutes.
Councillor Borthwick, are you for or against the application?
Against.
Sorry?
Against.
Against. Thank you very much. Mr. Tyler, could we have the numbers, please?
Yes, Chairman. So the total number of votes for is 9. The total number of votes against is 4, and there was 1 abstention. So that motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members. That application is granted. Thank you to Mr. Tebb. We will move on. Although it is now 12 o'clock, we will commence with the next application, which is 6C Duck Lane.
Chairman,
But
can I just sorry, Chairman, can I just interject? Can I just confirm that during the discussion on the last application, there was obviously talk about the condition and whether the hard landscaping would be porous. I took from that that members wanted that condition changing to add wording to ensure that any replacement hard surfaces were porous or permeable.
Yes, please, Mr. Gould, if that was possible. Thank you.
If that could be noted by Joe, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Lepedevin.
Well, there was also the change I drew attention to about the LED lighting. I hope that was going to be amended.
Yes, I did ask for that to be noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we will move on then. As I say, we will have a break at 12:30, but we will commence with the following application, which is 6C Duck Lane. And this is being presented to us this morning by Mr. Charles Raven. Mr. Raven.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask Colin to stop sharing the screen, please?
Yep. Colin?
Yeah, sorry.
Could you remove your screen, please?
Stop sharing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Raven.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you confirm you can see my screen?
I can indeed. Thank you.
Okay, so we have another BCP application. This seeks consent for the erection of a 3-storey block of 12 2-bedroom flats with a separate bin and cycle storage, and the formation of parking spaces on land off Duck Lane. This is in the West Howe area of Bournemouth, towards the north of the borough. Firstly, I'd like to take you through the general characteristics of the application site with the aid of some aerial views and photographs. The site is made up of an existing garage block and a green space behind, and is located at the end of a cul-de-sac, providing access to 2 3-storey blocks of flats and a garage forecourt. There's a further block of flats, another 3-storey block of flats located to the southwest, which utilises a different access from Duck Lane. Therefore, the principal of flats within this area is well established. You can see to the west of the site is the Oakmead College. To the north of the site is a recent council scheme of semi-detached 2-storey houses. To the east, there is a play area, an open space, and further to the east is the Elm Academy. There are a significant number of mature trees in the locality, which enhance the character of the area, and they screen Turnbull Lane, which is to the north, and provide a screen to the open amenity land and play area to the east. The site is also visible in views from the pedestrian Leaf Lane, which runs alongside the site to the north, between it and Turnbull Lane. This is a area view looking north, and you can see the existing blocks of flats to the west, and the play area to the east, and the recent affordable housing development to the north. This is a view looking east. You can see the site marked by the arrow with the garages in front. Again, you can see the play area further to the east, to the north of the photo, and the existing flats to the right hand side. This is a view looking south, which just gives an indication of the existing flats and the boundary of the site. Again, this is a view looking west towards Oakmead College, and you can see the context of the site in relation to the existing flats to the south. So officers undertook pre-application discussions with the applicant, as highlighted in the officer's report. We've also negotiated a number of revisions to the scheme after the submission. Just going to go through some photos. Sorry, this is a view from the access from Duck Lane and looking towards the site. You can see the existing flats on the right hand side and the existing car parking which was to remain. This is further up the access route, and you can see the second block of flats on the right hand side and the site to the left. From the interior of the site, the built form would be largely in front of you and to the right. Again, looking from the site towards where the proposed building would be situated. This is another view. You can see the closest block of flats on the left-hand side and the site to the front of you and to the right. And again, this is taken from the same view and shows the 2 closest existing blocks of flats and the parking to the left, which will remain. This is taken from the interior of the site, looking towards Turnbull Lane on the left and the open amenity space on the right-hand side. And again, this is looking from the site down towards the access, and you can see Oakmead College in the background. Again, this is taken from the site adjacent to the boundary with the amenity space, showing the existing 2 blocks of flats in the background. And this is Leaf Lane. To the right hand side are existing mature oak trees, and further to the right, which you can't see, is Turnbull Lane, and to the left is the application site. And again, you can see Oakmead College in the background. Again, this just shows the application site. So during the application process, officers negotiated a number of revisions, and this included the removal of a pitched roof and elevational design changes, replacement of north-facing balconies with Juliet balconies, and I'll come to those in a bit, provision of solar panels to the flat roof, changes to the layout, additional pedestrian access to the rear to access the private amenity space, and also some changes to the bin and cycle stores and parking areas. So the revised scheme, as you can see in front of you, would provide a more contemporary flat roof, 3-storey building, which would have a centrally recessed access core with 2 accommodation sections having a protruding feature which frames the 2 sections from the frontage and continues on the other elevations. You can't really see from the plans in front of you, but wedge-shaped balconies on the 3 of the elevations would add further interest and articulation to the facades. There'll be a significant number of all-height windows which provide good levels of light to the flats, and the flat roof would provide sufficient space for solar panels, which would be shielded from the ground level by an appropriate parapet, which forms part of the frame feature discussed. The siting of the development would ensure good spacing to the boundaries as well as to existing flats. The new block would therefore not appear cramped. A communal amenity space would be provided to the rear, together with private balconies or terraces for each unit. The refuse and cycle stores being repositioned to ensure the main entrance of the block is visible from the main access from Duck Lane. This ensures good legibility and a more welcoming and attractive approach to the building. And as envisioned, good quality landscaping around all sides of the building would further soften the impact. With regard to residential amenity on the surrounding residents, this has been fully assessed in line with the local policies and adopted guidance, as well as national guidance, and the full assessment is contained within the officer's report. However, it should be noted that direct window-to-window separation distances to neighbouring properties meet or exceed the stated distances within your adopted design guide, so no harmful overlooking or overbearing impacts would occur. There is one instance where the gap is 1 metre shorter than expected 25 metres. However, the window relationship is oblique to the flank of the proposed block, so the impact is considered minimal and not harmful in any way and acceptable in this instance. In terms of the future occupiers, all of the units are comfortably larger than the minimum space standards advocated by the technical housing standards. And all of the main living areas are dual aspect, and all units have at least one outside private amenity area, in the form of a terrace or a balcony. And in addition, there is a communal outside area to the rear. So the proposed living conditions are considered appropriate and acceptable. Chairman, the site and its neighbours are not covered by tree preservation orders. There are a number of poor quality trees that are shown to be removed, and your agricultural officer has raised an objection to this. Notwithstanding this, as previously mentioned, there is a screen of mature English oak trees in close proximity to the northern elevation of the block. Your tree officer initially had concerns in regard to the proximity of these trees to the balconies serving the units on the proposed north-facing elevation. And these balconies have since been omitted and replaced with Juliet balconies. The applicant has also provided a daylight assessment which demonstrates adequate light will reach these windows. Although notwithstanding this, it should be noted that these windows are secondary openings to the rooms they are serving, with the main windows and balconies facing east and west respectively. There is therefore limited to no reason why there should be any future pressures for these trees to be cut back. The development can therefore be provided without any harm to the long-term retention of these unprotected trees. The plans indicate areas for landscaping surrounding the entire building, which again will soften the impact of the development even further. With regard to parking and highway safety, the development has been fully assessed by your highways officer. The existing vehicular access from Duck Lane will be retained and utilised. The sweep path analysis has been provided, which demonstrates that all refuse vehicles used by the council will be able to turn around on site, thereby avoiding the need for long reversing manoeuvres. The gated pedestrian access to Leaf Lane to the north will be retained. The applicant has confirmed that the land adjacent to the application site and within the same ownership comprise 3 9 2-bedroom blocks of flats at numbers 4, 6 and 8 Duck Lane, and you saw these earlier in the presentation. These existing blocks within a Zone D location within your adopted parking standard SPD create or generate a parking requirement of 27 spaces. The existing flats currently have access to 28 surface car parking spaces, none of which shall be lost as a result of the development, thereby satisfying the existing parking requirements. There are no objections to the loss of the existing garages, which are of a substandard size and for the most part are not utilised by the residents of the existing flats for parking. 12 new car parking spaces are proposed to cater for the 12 proposed flats, and this provision meets the requirements of the parking standards SPD. Proposed cycle parking also meets the requirements of the SPD, and electric vehicle charging points will be secured by the proposed condition 16. Therefore, the proposed parking arrangements are fully compliant with your adopted parking SPD, and the development would not give rise to any additional highway safety concerns. With regard to the provision of affordable housing, the applicant is the council's housing section, and all units will be affordable housing. However, in order to meet the requirements of your adopted affordable housing policy, a condition is proposed which ensures that at least 40% of the units are made available as affordable housing, and you can read this at proposed condition 7. The required contribution for heat flow mitigation will be secured through a unilateral undertaking, and the development will also be subject to a payment of the community infrastructure levy. Your policy CS2 requires at least 10% of the energy to be used in all major development to come from a decentralised and renewable or low carbon source. In this instance, the applicant has indicated that all light fittings will be dedicated energy efficient, with all external lighting controlled by a passive infrared and/or dust-adorned sensors. It is also proposed to utilise ground source heat pumps for all heating and solar panels on the flat roof. The proposed condition 18 requires a full energy efficiency scheme to be submitted and agreed by the local planning authority. Chairman, in summary, the development makes more efficient use of an underutilised site. The development provides needed affordable housing. Following revisions, the scale and design of the development are considered appropriate. There will be no harmful impact on residential amenity. The level of parking provision conforms to your adopted parking standard SPD. The development will not have any adverse impact on highway safety, no harmful impact on trees, and heat flow mitigation and affordable housing provision are policy compliant. Chairman, officers have worked with the applicant to provide a deliverable contemporary development that would not have any harmful impact on the character or appearance of the area, and your officers therefore recommend approval in line with the recommendation and conditions cited in the report in front of you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Raven. Mr. Tyler, could we go to any statements, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So for this application, we have received no statements in objection and 2 in support. The first of those 2 is from John Christopher, who is the architect from Trinity Architecture, and the statement is as follows. The scheme has been designed to replace redundant lockups, substandard garages, and provide 12 2-bed 4-person flats on 3 levels, which meet with the national prescribed space standards of 70 square metres and are located to either side of a central core within the confines of available land. To be helpful, we would like to summarise the main design features of this scheme. Layout. The overall layout provides vehicle and cycle parking to the authority's adopted standards, whilst retaining the existing parking serving the existing adjacent block of flats. Additionally, a new centralised refuse store for the proposal has been provided, meeting with the adopted standards for domestic general waste, recycling waste and food waste, which is fully accessible for residents and the authority's waste collection vehicles. Modern methods of construction. The building layout has also taken into consideration the ability to enable MMC to be utilised. This will enable higher levels of thermal performance from the building structure to be achieved, providing improved levels of comfort within the spaces with less energy input for the occupants. Building materials. Externally, the building takes on a simple modern form utilising a buff face brick throughout, with areas of the same brick with an alternative stack bond pattern and portions of light grey cladding as features. This approach was discussed and agreed with the Council's Urban Design Officer during the planning process. Pedestrian access. The proposal utilises the existing vehicle and pedestrian access from Duck Lane and creates a new pedestrian access onto Leaf Lane for use by the whole community. Amenity space. Each flat has external private amenity terrace balcony space associated with their lounges, together with use of the communal grounds and wider public open space beyond. Sunlight and daylight. The flats are generally oriented east-west to make best use of the sunlight path for the area. All rooms have natural daylight and ventilation through the high-performance triple glazed windows. Sustainability. The roof is generally flat, which enables low-pitch solar PV panels to be installed in optimum position. Within the available land, a ground source heat pump system is proposed to serve the accommodation for hot water and space heating, which further seeks to reduce the building's overall carbon footprint. Sprinkler system. An independent residential mist sprinkler system is intended for each flat. This scheme is designed to high standards and makes the best use of the site. Like us, we do hope that the Planning Committee see the substantial benefits associated with approving this scheme. And the second statement in support, Chair, is from Mark Shepherd, who is BCP Council's Development Project Manager. There are around 4,300 households on the housing register for the Bournemouth area, 950 in the Poole area and 400 in the Christchurch area, waiting for affordable housing in the form of either council housing or housing association properties. Duck Lane Phase 2 is a development scheme for affordable housing within the conurbation for those in housing need. These homes will help towards the local plan housing delivery targets. The BCP Council owned site comprises a disused plot within the grounds of 3 HRA flat blocks. The land is behind a block of garages. The existing garages are in poor repair and create an area without overlooking, which is prone to frequent fly tipping and antisocial behaviour. They are typically not large enough for modern cars and are mainly used for storage. Only a couple of these are let to the residents of the flats. The current proposal is for the provision of 12 two-bed flats for families. There is to be associated parking and landscaping, as well as creating a new pedestrian access onto Leaf Lane for use by the whole community. As a part of the development and as an improvement to the neighbourhood, 17 existing garages will be demolished. These will be replaced by 14 parking spaces. The block will benefit from the addition of photovoltaic panels, which will provide free electricity to supplement that taken from the network. This will reduce the service charge payable by residents and reduce costs overall. Triple glazing will provide sound and heat insulation, and additional cavity insulation will complement this to reduce the heating requirement, which will be met by ground source heat pumps. No representations were received by BCP Council's Planning Department regarding this proposal. The key benefits of this proposal are a 12-unit 100% affordable housing scheme, all units meeting the national prescribed space standards, a scheme built to high sustainability standards, decreasing the number of families on the housing waiting list, helping BCP Council meet its housing delivery targets, development likely to start within the first year upon being granted planning permission approval. Upon receiving planning permission, and as this scheme is under 50 homes, it can be developed immediately as SANG is not an issue. Like us, we do hope that the Planning Committee see the substantial benefits associated with approving this scheme. It is unlikely that such a scheme would come forward from a private developer. We are keen to receive planning approval to start development immediately. That's the end of the second statement in support, Chairman, and there are no ward councillors registered to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. Members, it is almost lunchtime now. I see no point in starting the debate until after the lunchtime period now. So with your Councillor Borthwick, I noticed that you had your hand up very early. Is this to do with this application?
Yes, Chair. A simple move, really. I'd just like to move this application because I think it's so excellent that it doesn't really need any further discussion in length because it covers everything one would desire for an application.
I'm
everything.
very happy to second that, Chair.
If that being the case, are there any members that wish to speak on this? And we will be prepared to do this if it means we finish this one before lunchtime. Councillor O'Neill.
I was going to second it, Chair. It's location, development, design, sustainability, etc. Ticks all the boxes, and more than happy to vote for. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor
Can I
Hilliard.
just add that it shows that sustainability and such issues can be taken very seriously when there's a will. This from what we've heard and seen, appears to be exemplary. So I'm very happy.
Thank you, Councillor Lepedevin. Councillor Hilliard, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I did. It was only to second, so yeah, that's all good. Thanks.
Okay. In that case, do I have any other members that wish to speak either for or against this application, please? If not, I will move to the moves. Like Councillor Borthwick, I do think this is an excellent application, and I think Mr. Raven has presented it so well that it's easily understandable. And I think again is a great use of a piece of redundant land there that will make great use for affordable homes for the residents of this conurbation. So there being no more hands raised, I will move to the vote on this one, and I will call your names individually, and if you could again answer for or against, please. Councillor McCormack.
For.
Councillor Bartlett.
For.
Councillor Barron.
For.
Councillor Borthwick.
For.
Councillor Bull.
For.
Councillor Davies.
For.
Councillor Dion.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Hilliard.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Lepedevin.
For.
Councillor O'Neill.
For.
Councillor Stribley.
For.
And myself also for, and with my dainty mathematics, that makes that one unanimous. I thank you all for your time on that one, and I thank very much Mr. Raven for the work that you've put in on this. You've made the decisions very simple for us with such a great presentation, so thank you for that. Councillor Borthwick, before we go to a lunch break, I will just need to ask you one question. At the end of the previous item, we lost you for a short period of time. Yeah. Could you confirm that you did actually hear the entirety of the application and it was only part of the voting process that you missed?
I lost just those 2 or 3 minutes, actual.
Thank you very much. So you didn't miss any of the actual presentation?
No, I got everything like that. Yeah, it was just the questions and answers.
Thank you for your clarity, Councillor Borthwick. Appreciate it. Okay, members, we will adjourn now 3 minutes earlier than I anticipated. I'm sorry about that, but we will resume again at 1 p.m. sharp. Thank you.